All right. So there are three mistakes that I see when people are building kind of their solo conglomerate. I'm really excited. We've got a few people that are in the acquisition holding company program right now that were already in kind of solo businesses, a couple which are doing seven figures. And then we also have people that are starting from scratch, building what they envision as what will eventually be a solo conglomerate. And so that's why I've been talking a little bit more about this. Now, we do have people on the other end of the spectrum. We have some people that have large, massive businesses and, already that they're growing through acquisition. A couple that I'm way more focused on them exiting some of the assets that they haven't turned into companies and that can be exited. And then some people that have a vision for buying kind of larger businesses that have lots of employees and all that. But I think that is what most people think about when they think about acquisitions. And so I like to talk about this solo conglomerate idea because a lot of people don't think about the fact that with all the tools we're getting access to, with being able to buy businesses don't require a lot of physical time and effort. It's an opportunity to kind of build this solo conglomerate where you've got several streams of income, several businesses, maybe one, two assistants, and you're managing these different kind of business machines. And obviously, we know that all of this stuff is risky. I was on speaking on a virtual event last night. I was talking about what I call the Fortune 500 rule of 100. The thing that we know about the Fortune 500 is that 100 years ago, if you look at the Fortune 500 back then compared to today, 490 of them are gone. If you go through another 100 years, 490 will be gone again. And so there's only a few of these businesses, especially as they stand today, even if they may be merged or whatever, a few of them are going to exist. And so when you look at small businesses, those numbers are even more outrageous. So the more that you can diversify, the better. But there are three big mistakes that I see people make, when it comes to the capital part of their business. Number one is not raising enough money. Most people aren't accessing capital the way they could, the way they should. And there's just more capital out there than ever before that needs to get to work. It's definitely not that the capital isn't there. What you should hear when you hear the government print another $1 trillion, that means that money, even if they're giving it to poor people, those poor people are going to spend the money and it's still going to end up in the hands of the wealthy. And then those wealthy folks have to put that money to work. The other thing that you can hear when you hear inflation, the important thing to understand is that inflation is a nice way of saying that the dollar is crashing. So literally every time you hear, oh, there's high inflation, it means that the dollar is crashing at a very high rate. And so it's just that if it would, send the masses out running from their homes if they literally said what was actually happening. But it basically means that the dollar is crashing, currency is crashing. So those people that are getting that capital need to put it to work. So there's more capital than ever before. We turn down lots of capital. Capital should not be the reason that you're not doing more deals. So that's the first thing. It's not getting access to enough capital. The next thing is when they get access to that capital, they're getting kind of blanket liens across too many assets. And that puts what I call golden handcuffs. It's the M&A version of golden handcuffs where they're giving you the money, but now they're limiting your ability to do the things that we like to do of exiting certain assets, buying other assets, merging things together that maximize value, being able to exit those when it's the right time and when we have the right offer. And when they do what's called a blanket loan, that is a mistake. So we want you to avoid that. But what we're going to talk about today is the final mistake that people make is giving the personal guarantee. Now, it's not that you never want to do this. There's certain cases where this makes a lot of sense, but in a lot of cases, people are doing it when it just isn't necessary, and they never negotiate out of it. And so we're going to be talking tonight we've got an acquisition holding company training program with folks that are in that program, and we're going to be talking about raising capital and negotiating out of this personal guarantee. So there are about 20 different methods that I'll go through if I'm doing a deal to get out of the guarantee. I want to share three. I may do four. I may do four today. We'll go through three or four of what we train the acquisition whole. So we use about 20 different strategies, and usually between those, you're going to be able to get out of that personal guarantee. But the real goal of this is that with every part of your business, shout out to DMAC, one of our seven-figure acquisition holding company members, who has an amazing business that he's building. And one of the things that is really exciting when you look at it, he kind of falls into that almost solo conglomerate business model. But one of the really exciting things is that for most people, what they're deciding on is, where am I going to put this dollar? Like, where am I going to, I've got this amount of income, where am I going to get the highest ROI on my dollar? And you can start to build systems based on where you want to focus in your business. So we're talking about one of the funnels and systems for deals that he's doing. But the other place is, when you're growing your business, you're building out like every single thing. Like for me, when I'm buying, businesses, I've got a few different categories that I focus on. I literally build a funnel for any type of business or industry that I'm focused on. So within your business, you're building all these funnels. The other place that you should be building a funnel is capital. And so, we walk through, obviously, and Patrick will walk you through that, but with individual businesses, as a solo conglomerate, if you're depending on capital to do deals, you should have a funnel. And so a part of that funnel towards the end becomes you're filtering out how, you're getting a bunch of offers, then you're able to kind of come back with these 20 strategies on getting rid of the personal guarantee. And then you're able to pick the best deal that, also meets that criteria of not requiring the personal guarantee. So what are some of these strategies? Well, one of them is, nobody does this. It's so funny because it's a really easy thing to offer. And at the very least, like a lot of times you just get better terms. So one of the things that I'll always do is I will offer to purchase credit insurance. So I can purchase the credit insurance for my customers to basically make sure that I'm going to get those accounts receivables. And then that takes one less risk, because basically what that bank is trying to figure out is this person going to make the money in order to pay us? And so if you have a lot of accounts receivables out there, that can make you look really bad because they don't know if those people are going to pay. And they're like, hey, we need you to guarantee this because we don't trust that you're a customer company. It can be worth buying an insurance that's available that you could basically show, hey, I've got this credit insurance. And so that takes that risk away. And basically what you're doing, as you go through all of these different methods that we train on, it's like you're looking at things, everything's about looking at it from the other person's point of view. When I'm trying to get deal flow, I'm looking at it from whoever I'm targeting, I'm looking at it from their point of view. The second part is, or another strategy is what's called a fidelity certificate. Now, this, we talked about the insurance, the credit insurance. Nobody really talks about using that, especially as a tactic for negotiating with a investor or lender. But the other part is the fidelity certificate. Now, this is something that gets rid, again, you're just thinking about it from bank's perspective. You're thinking about it from that lender or that investor's perspective. And so the first thing is, oh, they're worried about, I'm worried that you're just lying. I'm worried that what you've given me, the documents that you've given me, I've looked at the bank account, I'm just not sure that you're telling me the truth. I'm just worried that something's going to go wrong, and then I find out that you're lying. Now, there's a big case. Somebody who had scammed some of the biggest people on earth. I think it's Morgan Stanley, one of the big investment banks, where a lady convinced them that she had this platform that had 4 million people using it. Turned out it's like 300,000. I think she had told him it was like 4.5 million. And so a very big difference. And they paid her over like 100 million. And turns out that it was completely fraudulent. And so that is a concern for a lenders, that they're going to do something and they find out later that there was something fraudulent. And the way that you can protect them against that is you buy what's called a fidelity certificate. Again, this is something that most small deals, available to small deals, but they're just not using it. And so this is something I help our acquisition holding company members with when they're trying to do a deal. It's like, hey, let's walk you through this process so that this takes that off of the lender's kind of risk list. And that's all we're just going down their thing and saying, hey, we're going to get rid of all of your risks. Now, before I go to the next one, the other question here becomes, why is this so important? And the reason this is really important for the solo conglomerate folks is that we want to keep you freed up to do as many deals as possible. And as soon as you give up your personal guarantee, like I said at the beginning, it's not that you never want to do it, but you can only do that so many times before it becomes worthless. And so we want to save that personal guarantee for the massive opportunity where it's going to change your financial life forever. And then it's worth giving that risk up because you know that, hey, this is a huge deal. Now, on the other end, we're trying to make sure that while it's going to change your financial life forever, it's also a very safe deal, and there are assets and there are all of these other things that are there to protect you if you're going to do that. And the reason I want to kind of take a break is that this is where we get into the asset portion of some of these options. So one of the options that you can give a bank as opposed to a personal guarantee, so you can say, hey, what if instead of me giving you a personal guarantee, I pledged some of the assets? And then you can get into specifics where you can get an appraisal done, or they can have it done, of the assets of the business, and you're showing, hey, you don't really need my personal guarantee because I'm going to, especially, one of the ones that I love is domains, because the second part of the question is, if it's equipment in a business, yeah, you see that you're going out of business. What if you just take all that equipment out, you sell it, and now we got the nightmare of trying to like figure that out. Again, that you're trying to get into the brain of them, and you're literally coming to them like, hey, this is the easiest. What we do, and the reason we can get the types of financing and capital on deals that we do, is that we're trying to say, hey, depending on where you are now, obviously if you're investing and it's an equity deal, it's like, hey, we want the maximum upside, then there's going to be more risk. But if you're in kind of a lower risk kind of lending position, then it becomes a situation of, listen, I want you to feel and be as safe as possible. And so you're making it easy for them, and you're basically saying, hey, this is going to be the easiest loan you make all year long because I'm doing the work. I can see things from your viewpoint, and that's all a deal maker's job is. It's being able to see 360 degrees of views. You're able to see the seller's point of view. You're able to see the lender's point of view. You're able to see the other parties of the deal, like the employees or other investors. And so you're just going around and you can see everything from everybody's points of view, and you're structuring the deal to work for them based on their point of view. People get so focused on their own personal point of view that they don't take the time to say, how can I structure this based on what the other person wants? So when it comes to those assets, you can give them an asset security pledge. And like I was saying before, one of my favorite assets is if we're doing a deal that has a domain name that is of value, you can get that appraised and you can see exactly, hey, if you take this to the market, this is what you're going to get for this. We're going to discount that. And it's one of the easier assets to get a lender or investor comfortable with, because you can put that into an escrow. You still use it the same, everything works the same, but it works automatically that if you don't make the payments or whatever, then they get control of that. That's a very powerful thing to be able to negotiate, to be able to say, hey, here's this kind of thing. So again, even when you're giving them the asset, you're showing them here is why this is less of a headache than any of your other loans. And that's our goal. The same way that I talk about selling a business, if I'm selling a business, I want that. I never want to talk to a buyer that hasn't looked at other businesses, because I want to be able to show them, like, listen, this is you've seen how sucky all these other businesses are. They don't have SOPs. Their books are a wreck. Their their employees aren't well trained. Their marketing plan is in shambles. All of these things, and you come over here and everything is very easy and simple and organized and all that, and it is a business ready for sale. I want a seller or buyer to go and look at all these other deals so they can see these other sellers that suck. It's the same way with a lender. It's like, hey, this lender all day, every day, they're coming, they have borrowers that are coming, or investors are having people come, and they just don't have all their stuff together. And not only is our stuff together, but we're telling them, hey, here's what you should be thinking about from your due diligence, and here's how we're going to protect you based on that. And then the last one, I'll give you a little tidbit. It's basically giving them a example of how they can cross collateralize some of your other assets, even outside of the business, that that will then give them even more protection than a loan, and then you get out of that personal guarantee. The real key here is, when it comes to a personal guarantee, that person come after you, come after all your assets, come after your credit, come after all those things. Again, it's not that we never want to do that if the deal is worth it, but the goal is that we're closing a lot of deals. And when you have these tactics in your tool belt, let alone we're going to be covering tonight, like all 20 of these, then it gives you that other kind of basis. And really what you're trying to do is build this funnel where you're putting a ton of potential investors, a ton of potential lenders, all the capital that you could ever dream of. And then you're not just begging them, you're enticing them and showing them each step of the way in that funnel, all the way up until you get to this kind of final leg of making these decisions. And part of it is from the asset and the PG standpoint. Each way you're showing them, hey, I am the very best place that you can put these funds. Hopefully this is helpful to y'all. Be sure to like. Y'all know how we roll over here. You know what I mean? You know what we do. Sorry, this seems like there's a bit of a connection. M-Sway says going in now. Hopefully once it uploads, it recorded well on this end. But yeah, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, check out the Patreon, and I will talk to y'all